Let's recap Survivor for October 19th, 2011. So the show opens up with Jeff doing his typical recap, and then it goes straight over to Savai to show the aftermath of the vote last week against Elise. Ozzy's throwing a temper tantrum, and the tribe is sitting there reacting to him, and he's basically, you guys made me look like a fool. He's mad at Keith and Whitney for not telling him about it, and Dawn says to him, oh, come on, Ozzy, there are things that you plan and do without telling everybody. Why should we all have to tell you everything? And Ozzy says, oh yeah? Well, here's some information for you. I have the idol. It was a really stupid move. It was done in anger, and he comes around later to regret it. But basically, he is ticked off his entire tribe. He goes off the next morning. He's still pouting. He's in a confessional out in the water, and he says, I lead by example, and they need to pay attention to me. And he says, I am still an important member of this tribe. And then he holds up this one little pink fish, implicating that he feeds them, and therefore they need to obey him. Ozzy and his God complex are kind of killing me this season. He's a little too arrogant, and he believes that his tribe needs him a lot more than they do. They're not stupid people over at that tribe. So the tribe is angry with him. They're sitting around the fire, talking about him and what brat he's being. And Jim says, it behooves me to keep Ozzy because he'll help us win challenges to get to the merge, and then he'll be a bigger target after the merge. Over at Apulo, they're happy for at least a couple of minutes. They're all eating, life is good, and Edna is trying to cozy up to Coach because she needs some security, and Coach picks up on this, and he says to Edna, will you follow me to the end? And she says, yes, I will. And he says, will you follow me into battle? And she says, even if it gets ugly. This comes out later in the show, and Coach's argument for loyalty is working for him so far this season, and it made him a little stronger today. And I'll get to that in a minute. So then we get to the duel. And Christine and Elise are there. And Jeff starts out by asking Elise how it feels to be doing a duel after a blind side, and Keith is sitting there, and he is one of the people who voted her out. Actually, Keith didn't vote her out. He voted for Dawn. But she says, yeah, it's kind of hard. Then Christine starts crying because she's been at Redemption Island for a long time now, and she says it breaks you. At which point that guy named Rick, he wears a black hat, and you may have never seen him so far this season of Survivor. But today, all of a sudden, Rick is speaking, and he actually uses words and everything. He sees Christine crying, and he tries to encourage her. Christine, you can do this. He's being compassionate, kind guy, and she is being the typical bitter Betty that she is, and she says, oh yeah? And she flicks him off. At which point he looks over at, Sophie. Sophie was there watching, and he looks over at Sophie and says, did you see that? And they know that if Christine makes it back, there's no way on earth she's going to be with them. So then Christine wins a fourth duel in a row. Goodbye, Elise. Her time is over. And Christine is crying as she heads back to Redemption Island. Her strength is really going down. So then they head over to Apulo, where Brandon is searching for the hidden immunity clue, because he thinks it's very important that they find it, that he wants his tribe to be stronger. So he starts searching for it, and he finds it. Then he goes to Albert and Coach and tells them about that. Pardon me, tells them about the clue so that they can all three go look for it. Well, Coach and Albert know that Coach already has the clue, and they watch Brandon look for it. And the more they watch Brandon look for it, the more suspicious, not suspicious, but weary Coach becomes that Brandon has Russell Hant's blood running through his vein. He walks like him. He is driven the way Russell Hantz is driven, and he keeps the information about his idol quiet, and Brandon doesn't know about it. Get to the immunity challenge. Oh, yes, get to the immunity challenge, and it is you have to build a wheelbarrow, maneuver the wheelbarrow through an obstacle course, collect coconuts, drop the coconuts into a trough, take your wheelbarrow apart, put it back together as a slingshot, pick up the coconuts, and aim them at the other tribe's 6 targets. The first one to get all 6 targets down wins the game. Upulu is kicking butt during this competition. They're working very fast. They get through the little course very quickly. Savai is struggling terribly to get through it. They get to the part where they're shooting at the targets. They've got one down by the time Savai even gets there. But Michaela is not making any shots. She hasn't made a single shot. She only uses one arm, and they keep telling her, Michaela, 2 hands, 2 hands. And Coach keeps saying, Michaela, 2 hands. She's not even getting the coconuts near one of the targets. And Coach says to Michaela more than once during the competition, Michaela, you want to take a rest and let us guys do it, and that way we get more shots? No, Coach, I've got this. And then she gets up to do it again, and it's 1 arm instead of 2, and they say, Michaela, 2 hands, 2 hands. She won't listen. And Savai comes back and beats them and goes off for their reward, which is food and swimming at this tropical hole that has, it has stones with moss, and you can slide down the stones into the water. They have a great time. They're enjoying themselves. Go back to Upulu, who now has to vote somebody out. Coach wants Michaela gone. Albert wants Edna gone. Albert wants Edna gone. He uses the argument that Edna's weak for his main argument. But the truth is, Albert wants Edna gone for his own game because he doesn't want Coach to have a bunch of very loyal people to Coach. And that's so he keeps using the strength argument. Michaela's stronger. She can help us in immunity challenges. But the truth is, he doesn't want Coach to have several different people who are extremely loyal to him. Now remember, I said earlier, Coach has this loyalty argument going, and it's working for him. So Coach had told Edna that he had her back to the end. When Coach found out that Albert was trying to get Michaela to stay and Edna gone, Coach was very upfront about it. Now I have to say, they try to make all this drama about Upulu, but the truth is they were all very upfront with each other about who they were voting out. They didn't, try to blindside each other. Albert came to Coach, said what he wanted. Coach said to Albert what he wanted, said, look, I'm voting out Michaela. And Brendan said, look, I'm voting out Michaela. I like Michaela. I don't trust Edna as much, but we made a promise that it was going to be the 6 of us, and if we don't have that, we have nothing. So I'm keeping my word. Now, there's that guy, Rick, the guy with the black hat that you've never seen before. I keep repeating this because he showed up out of nowhere. Rick is suddenly the swing vote, and he counts for the first time. He doesn't like being the swing vote. He doesn't like having to make a decision. And I'm sure he wasn't used to cameras actually talking to him, not actually talking, but, I'm sure he's not used to doing confessionals because we've never seen him before. Anyhow, Rick is the swing vote. We get to tribal council, and Jeff is doing this. Did you know that tribal councils last an hour and a half to 2 hours in real life? An hour and a half to 2 hours, and we see, 5 minutes of it? Those ought to be interesting tribal councils. No wonder people come back with such hurt feelings, because there's a lot more aired out in those tribal councils than what we see on TV. So, anyhow, at tribal council, Jeff is saying to them, what's more important, strength or loyalty? And Coach's argument is our strength is in our loyalty, and Albert's argument is physical strength gets us to the merge with numbers, and loyalty is less important. Then we'll be loyal to each other because we're there with numbers. So the votes come down 43 against Michaela. Michaela goes home. Rick sided with Brandon, or Coach, and Edna. What's interesting to note is at this tribal council, Brandon comes out and goes, look, We talked about loyalty for the last two tribal councils in a row, and we promised each other there was a team of 6, and Edna was on that team. And even though I like Michaela now, and I'm not sure I trust Edna all that much, I gave Edna my word, and I'm going to keep to it. And you're either a person of your word or you're not a person of your word. And then he says, if we're not going to play a loyal, honest game, then vote me out now because I don't want to play any other game. Shocking words, but he was very upfront. He said, look, there is no gray here. It's either black or white. You're either telling the truth or you're not telling the truth. You're either lying or you're not lying. Are we in an alliance together? Are we not? If we are, we keep our word and we keep Edna. If we're not, then we all know. So, votes 4-3, Michaela goes, and you think that the tribe is just a mess. They're not really a mess. They want to, you know, it's editing. It's editing. The next day, they, I think they come together, and I don't think that the tribe is, I think Brandon is probably going to go soon, before Edna, depending on immunities and everything. He's a wild card, you know? But the thing is, Coach's game is very solid at this point. He has an immunity idol. He's going to keep Brandon and Albert and Sophie close to him because they're the only people who knows he has the item. And he's going to keep Edna and Brandon close to him because they're very loyal. They might not be strong, and Brandon's a little bit wild, but they're loyal. So, and Rick seems loyal. Okay, so over at Savai, it looks like they're just happy peas in a pod all of a sudden. Some things to note. 1, I watch Reality Rescue on Super Pass, which is a subscription show that you can sign up for, and you find out inside information on these things. And what I found out last weekend at Reality Rescue is a couple things. 1, Cochran is not well liked by the cast members after the show, which leads me to want to watch him more to see how sneaky he gets, because I can't see him being disliked if he's the sacrificial lamb next week. So his game is going to be very interesting for me to watch, because there's got to be a reason people don't care for him outside of the game. 2, Keith and Whitney are dating. This I know because at Reality Rescue, during an interview, it was said that Whitney is dating her, she has a boyfriend that she met on Survivor. And then there was another article on Reality Nation by Brendan Barker talking about Keith and Whitney tweeting about being in the same place at the same time. So Keith and Whitney are boyfriend and girlfriend at this point, and to me, it only makes logical sense that they were more loyal to each other than to Ozzy during the game. And that will be interesting to watch that play out, because I'm sure there's going to be a point where Keith has to choose Ozzy over Whitney or Whitney over Ozzy. I highly doubt she became his boyfriend if he backstabbed her during the game. Interesting to watch. Let's see. Christine. Who will she go up against next, and will she win another and get back? She's got so much hatred towards Coach. She will go with the Savai crew. And the other thing is, she could be dangerous when it comes to individual immunities, because look how many duels she's won in a row. All right, well, that's Survivor Recap. I hope you enjoyed it. Contact me. Comment at the bottom of this article. Give me your opinions on what there is, and I'm going to show a few tweets from people about their comments about the show tonight. Thanks. Have a good night. So I got this question, and I want to answer it real quick. It's from DD42066, and she says, how come when the choice of who to go home comes, it's always a woman who goes? And the answer to that is very simple. First of all, before the merge, the weaker players all go. Women are seen as weaker, and you want to get rid of the weak people so that your tribe is as strong as possible to win as many immunity challenges before the merge as possible. So always, it's women who end up going because they're physically weaker than men. But then what happens is you get to the merge, and all those physical people become threats for immunity challenges, individual immunity challenges. And then all the strong people start getting picked off. So the guys are the number one targets after the merge. Before the merge, it's the women. After the merge, it's the men. It kind of evens itself out. All right. Have a good night.